Now, from John's book, and this is where I took this information, and as of 2007, which was the paper edition of this, and I don't know if he's updated it, this information was accurate of what we were fighting in Iraq. Okay, 75 to 100 groups of various sizes and so on that you see up there. It was referred to as an open source insurgency. Okay, the internet worked, cell phones worked. In that culture, particularly in an urban environment, there was a lot of face-to-face. It took them a lot of time, but they had a lot of time. Because U.S. units were on a year, 9 months to a 15-month cycle, depending on the surge. I was there, I have two. I was back for the surge. And by the time I had retired, and back in 2011, working at the embassy as the troops were withdrawing, I had gone from 3 kids in school to 3 kids who had been in theater. And they're still doing the same thing. And the two biggest information collectors to kind of backstop what Sam said over there are bread and tea. Because they have nothing but time. They sit and they watch. And they don't have to have a formal organization. We'll talk about that here in a second. But they organize themselves into a community network with a variety of skills available. The 75 to 100 groups of various sizes did not have 75 to 100 bomb makers. They had a cell, don't think that in the sense of we're all in this one building screwing things together. Right, but they had a group available who had that skill set. And they could tap into that based on guidance in the defined end state, which we'll talk about in a moment. That they could tap into that network. Same thing, they had a cell of straight up assassins. 2 brothers and the sons of 2 brothers. Now they fumbled that one, okay, and it happens. All right, and they are, as far as I know, still lying that alley up there. Okay, but they had groups available that they could tap into for whatever skill set they needed. So how does that apply to us? Well, you're going to have skill sets within there. And Sparks 31 on his website talks about if you can't do the run and gun and you don't have the space, become a technical guy. And somebody else is saying become a medical guy and spread that wealth. So you end up becoming a skill set within the larger movement, and then you can go and do training. Okay. Sam and I are standing here doing this. And you become your subject matter authority, okay, in your area, and you begin to spread that. Okay. These guys were organized into a network of communities across the board, again with a variety of skills available. And that was all done word of mouth. And everybody likes to use the French resistance model as a model. They were not stood up before 1942 or so. That was done under pressure. And if you've ever read IBM and the Holocaust, you know that the only difference between the surveillance state from 1933 or so until 1945 was the fact that we're largely paperless. Okay? And I highly recommend you take a weekend and read IBM and the Holocaust if you think the surveillance state we're under now is anything new. It's not. It's just a matter of technology and the speed with which they can push it around, which in itself is a disadvantage in some cases. The open source insurgency within that resulted in what you see up there. While DOD, the Department of State, is in their 72-hour, 96-hour, 120-hour decision-making cycle trying to analyze all this, these guys are, okay, we used to refer to as college hours. They sleep in till about noon, get up, raise a little cane till about 10 o'clock at night, party the rest of the night, get back up and do it again. All right, that was their OODA loop. Everybody likes to talk about that. Okay. The lack of a defined structure, as you see in the second bullet there, made them very difficult to deal with. You couldn't target a specific individual, and even when you could, and I'm talking about Al-Zarqawi here, nobody ever gave him up. He lived somewhere within 9-10 blocks of where we operated. We never got close to him. We had to change our focus. Okay, there you see lack of a defined structure made them difficult to kill above a squad level. When they massed, okay, the company or larger Fallujah, a few places, they got mashed flat in no time at all. Okay, and that applies to us, and we'll talk about this a little more down the road here. We see these guys quite difficult to kill. Okay? And their return on investment was tremendous. When you dig through Brave New World, you'll see instances of $2,000 attacks costing the government $500,000 to $1 million. Okay, disregarding the sunk costs of 9/11, they're talking about a $500,000 expenditure on those 4 aircraft. And you can't get 2 economists to agree on what that cost. It's anywhere from 4 to 8 trillion, depending on who you talk to. $1 trillion? A lot of money. Very good return on investment. The U.S. view of the insurgency there was one coherent insurgency under Al-Qaeda. That makes no sense on the face of it. Because if you look at how Al-Qaeda was set up, it was set up that the word is the base. And anybody can join it, anybody can leave it, you can belong to it as long as you want. You don't have to belong to it, you can just say you do. And the defined end state is the caliphate, the Sunni caliphate. So everybody's marching to the 1,400-year-old tactical, technical, political, religious, operational document. Okay, so they don't require big meetings, and they don't require coordination and all that because they've got it. Okay, so we're trying to view this as one coherent insurgency, when in reality it's not, because you had Sunni, Shia, you had criminal gangs, you had some other things I can't recall and never heard of before. Sam's nodding his head, the same thing in Afghanistan. Okay. So we're trying to view it through the lens, it's a very good word, of we're fighting a low-tech, low-speed, badly dressed and armed competitor. Not really. Okay. What we were fighting is what you see there in the 311. You had a network. Okay, the Sunni and the Shia could not be more diametrically opposed in what they want to do, particularly in Iraq. Okay, so they have different internal goals, but their unified external goal remained the same, and that was get the infidels out. Not only of Iraq, but of the entire Middle East. So what we were dealing with there was small, relatively autonomous groups, again, that shared skills and concentrate on targets, okay? And they picked fights they could win. Okay, the examples again, once they assembled much above platoon size, about 40, 50 guys, they got mashed flat. It wasn't even a good training event in some cases. All right, depending how Fallujah a little different. Okay, but a couple of times they massed a platoon company, reinforced company, which is 200, 300 guys in that environment, and we just romped them. I mean, it was over in no time at all. Alright, so it's coming together. So for our purposes, pick fights you can win. And we're going to continue to drill down on this into lower levels and specific actions you can take under certain scenarios that we're going to talk about.